How would you describe Vision Church?
A place of transformation. It wasn't very difficult to come up with the name of this church. When he and I were in the kitchen years ago, and we were talking about this vision. We were talking about a vision. So we started the Vision Church, a place where people could get a glimpse of who they could be and what they could be in the world. This place is only supposed to feed that vision so that people can go out those doors and serve the world and change the world and transform the world. That's what this place is about.
Vision Church is amazing, it's wonderful, it's the best church ever. The church has really taught me how to love myself, how to love God, how to trust God, how to trust myself. And it's some great tools, man, great tools that I think anybody, no matter your sexual orientation or your gender or your nationality, that could really take from it. It's more, yeah, it's a church, but it's more than that to me. Several years of beating myself up, thinking that I wasn't good enough, for God to love me and for me to go to heaven. Now I get to understand all these reasons why I am great enough. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, grew up Church of God in Christ, very strong religious background. And around 14, 15, I began to become aware of these feelings that I had an attraction to the same gender. And according to our teachings, being gay would send you to hell. And so I struggled with it, I wrestled with it, I prayed about it, and it got to a point where I became extremely depressed.
What were some of the things that you would hear from the pulpit about sexuality?
A man is not to lay with another man. Being gay is an abomination to God. Those are like two of the strongest things that you would constantly hear.
And what does that do? Because a lot of people just say, oh, well, we're just going by God's teachings. What does that do to a young boy when he's struggling with his identity and he hears that? What did that do to you?
It destroys him. And I'm made by God. So you're telling me that the man that made me hates me because of how he made me. And then, you have people that want to come back and say, oh, it's a choice, you chose it. I was molested as a kid. So a lot of times I would revert back to, okay, if that had never happened, would I still be gay? And it's just one of those things I'll never know because it happened.
You know that according to the American Psychiatric Association, sexual assault, it does not change or determine your sexual orientation. But do you still believe you are gay because you were molested?
Absolutely. You would like to think, when I say you, the person, you would like to think that you are, a regular kid and you're growing up with, quote unquote, a regular life. And when that's invaded by, a man to a little boy, and he's doing these things to you and completely stealing something from you, of course you wonder, if this had never happened, would I have this wife and, these kids, what have you? I'm 18. I'm still figuring out life, I'm making decisions about, what classes I want to take for college, just those should be the things that I'm concerned with, but I'm wrestling inside with my soul, with my spirit. I just stood there in that kitchen and I said, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it right now. I'm not gonna be scared. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. And when I stood there, hands shaking, I remember like it was yesterday. And I just closed my eyes and then when I opened my eyes, it was just like blood. I could feel it, like it was such a rush. You could feel like just the blood was just going everywhere. And then at that moment, I was like, oh my God, I don't wanna die, I don't wanna die, I don't wanna die, I don't wanna die. And I didn't die. And honestly, in that moment, I felt like this has to mean something. And when I went to the hospital and everything, and the lady was like, it was just so close, like you were literally one dot away. I had become clear that I don't want to kill myself. But at the same time, I felt the need to do something to express this pain that I was feeling. And I don't even know like where I got it from, but I said, okay, I'm just gonna start cutting myself, because you can almost feel a release when you open your flesh like that. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And actually, the first time I did it to my face, and I've healed since then, but there was cuts on my face, and I was probably like 19. And then after that, then that's when I got more comfortable and started doing my...
See all the scars.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, and I just started cutting. And as crazy as it sounds, it was a safe place. It allowed me to express or deal with the pain, but not kill myself. Just imagine, you're a little boy, you're growing up, you don't fit in, You may not want to play basketball, you may want to dance. So there's a certain level of rejection there. Then you're getting older, then your hormones are kicking in, and you want to be emotional, or you have a crush on, one of the basketball players in your high school. But of course you can't say anything. You're dealing with that, You're constantly growing up, with this whole rejection. If you're bold enough to come out, if you're bold enough to say, hey, I'm gay, then it turns into a fight, because you have to fight for who you are. You have to fight to be who you are. You have to defend yourself constantly, constantly prove or just say, hey, I'm still a human being, beyond color, beyond sexual orientation, I'm still a human being. You're constantly doing these things, and you get tired. You want to be able to just walk into a place and just be loved.
We see LGBT people coming into our worship spaces, but we won't holler, or we won't speak it, or we won't name it, or we won't acknowledge their presence. And when at times we do, it's oftentimes in derogatory situations.
I could be in an environment consistently where I'm not affirmed, but it all depends on, okay, God, where do you want me? And then why do you want me there? And I can deal with it.
Gosh, I hear that. Mm-hmm. But even when you just said I can deal with it, mm-hmm. I still feel a hurt in you. Oh, I still feel that. Or maybe I'm not.
No. It's not a hurt. It's a sadness, because there is the one thing that I wish the church had more of across the board is empathy. We don't have empathy for anyone. Anyone outside of ourselves, we don't really have empathy for. We never put ourselves in the position of anyone else. Because if we did, we would not be so quick to judge. And I think that if we had more empathy, if we really operated, again, in love, people wouldn't be hurt as much as they are.
You stand on that microphone and you tell all of us that we're going to hell.
That's gotta hurt.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts badly. Even for myself, as I've come to a certain point of self-actualization and embracing who I am, it still hurts. And I can't imagine how it feels for a young person who's still trying to figure out where they are, or what they're trying to do with their lives in terms of their sexual identity, to be in worship, which is supposed to cultivate love. But yet you say, I can't sit at God's table.
In the Black community, you can be almost anything, just don't be gay. God give them cancer. Don't, Wanda Sykes said it. She said it, and she was joking, but it's real, anything but gay. Especially because it becomes an indictment on one's manhood. If you are gay in the Black church, if you are gay in the Black community, you can't possibly be a man too.